What's up, Archons? I'm Flightless Pheasant, and now that you're here, let's try to put our heads together and see if we can do something about the conspiracy that's trying to open up portals to another dimension and replace us all with evil duplicates. But before we do, I'm a huge fan of Keyforge, and if you are too, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell, as I'll be bringing you even more lore from Keyforge and the Crucible. Today I'll be doing the second installment in a series called Adventures on the Crucible, where I walk you through the lore of one of the multiplayer Keyforge adventures. Each of these adventures features a canon event in the Keyforge lore that players must team up to overcome for the betterment of the Crucible. While these adventures are a ton of fun to play, there's often a lot of really interesting lore bits happening in the background, like which characters participated in these events. Sometimes new characters or locations are introduced, and occasionally there are even multiple endings. In this series, we'll look at these adventures to find the stories behind the adventures in order to increase our understanding of this wonderful world that is the Crucible. The second adventure, Abyssal Conspiracy, is actually a continuation of the first, Rise of the Keyraken. Immediately following the events of Rise of the Keyraken, as the Archons are celebrating their victory of defeating the mighty creature, the ship, the Vortexelion, comes under attack by a red-eyed crew member who sabotages many of the ship's systems. The red-eyed member escapes, and the crew is left to make repairs on the surface, a process that will take quite some time. During the repairs, Merkins, a new member of the crew of the Vortexelion, has managed to get his hands on a whisper conch, a communication device used by the cultists, and determined that the seal that released the Keyraken is one of 6, and if the other 5 are to be opened, then the world will face an unnatural doom. Fortunately, he also discovers that the device used to open these seals is a thing called the Vault Binder, and the Worldbreaker cult has put it somewhere in hiding. They no longer need it, but if the Archons can get their hands on it, they might be able to close the seals and prevent the incursion of the other worlds onto the Crucible. In order to get their hands on the Vault Binder quickly, they're forced to abandon the Vortexelion and dive without it. This means many of the heroes of the adventure are forced to swim their way down into the deep, dark depths. As a result, this adventure features a number of locations that you can look to try to discover the Vault Binder. Additionally, the forces of the conspiracy have been greatly reduced by their fight to defend the Keyraken, and are largely unable to stymie you directly, so they've instead opted to use traps and various other tricks to slow down the heroes. One of these tricks, by far the most problematic, is the use of a hypnotic spell that causes the subject to become an evil duplicate of themselves. Many of the heroes are subjected to this spell at one point or another, and under the sonic suggestion, lead their friends astray. As if that wasn't bad enough, the Deep Priest Anakava has done this spell on herself, making her more evil and more powerful than she was before. Deep Priest Anakava gets 2 quoted attributions in the cards for Abyssal Conspiracy. One on the Vault Binder, where she's quoted as saying, "Only the Vault Binder can close the seals, but you will never find it." And one on her own evil twin, where she's quoted as saying, "Each seal we open unleashes a resonant frequency, spreading out like ripples and touching the minds of more and more Archons. Soon, the whole Crucible will be ours." As the heroes make their way into the depths and slowly succumb to madness, Dr. Escotera, Merkins, Scout Pete, Senator Brackus, and Sir Maros are all out of commission, and it is left to the members of the Vortexelion crew to finish the job. As a result, we get a number of attributions from the captain of the Vortexelion, Captain Fermi. He's quoted on the SLRS Vortexelion as saying, "This is the finest deep-sea exploration vehicle House Logos has ever built, but it will still take days to get all of its systems back online. Go find out who did this and stop their schemes." Additionally, on the card Sabotage, he says, "So you are the ones sabotaging the Vortexelion." He's also quoted on Frost Turret as saying, with all these surprises they're leaving us, you'd think the conspiracy wants to tell us something. On Riptide Turret, he says losing only a fraction of your sanity to the Riptide is the best case scenario. And on Whirlpool Turret, he says more traps! We must be on the right track. Eventually, the crew is able to get their hands on the Vault Binder and use its sonic resonance ability to close the opened seals and prevent new ones from opening. Then the Vault Binder is destroyed to prevent it from ever being used again. After all of this is completed, all of those under hypnotic suggestion are freed, and the evil twins that were pouring out from these portals are sealed off from our reality, bringing stability back to the Crucible. Abyssal Conspiracy is a very fun adventure that has a lot of interesting lore about the undersea places that the Unfathomable House largely controls. Additionally, these seals are very important, as they're the explanation for why evil twin decks were introduced in Dark Tidings. So if you were ever curious where the evil twins lurking in your deck came from, this is it. I really do like this adventure quite a bit, because it's one of the most straightforward of the adventures that we have access to at this point. And even though it's a direct continuation of The Rise of the Keyraken, in many ways it's much more interesting, as you feel much greater pressure to try to find the Vault Binder quickly before all the seals can be opened. I really hope you enjoyed going on this adventure with me. Come along next time and we'll talk about the next adventure in the series, which is actually House Gormengeist, a prequel to the Grim Reminders set. Until then, I'm Flightless Pheasant, and this has been Adventures on the Crucible. Later, Archons!